Okay, I want to spend a minute with you right now and talk about what Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and my newspaper delivery man have in common.
So the big question is this: how is a tiny percentage of entrepreneurs blow the pack away? What are they doing that we're not? I asked myself that question for 10 years. I was failing forward and getting sick of it. I wanted to build a coaching business, but couldn't make any headway. So I started studying. I realized that the world's most elite marketers, entrepreneurs, and gurus were all using the same 4-step system. I call it the authority factor. On the show, I'm going to prove to you that the authority factor worked for them and it'll work for you. My name is Ken Dunn. Let's get started.
Good morning, everybody. It's Ken here, and it's super cool to be with you. I want to say Happy New Year to everybody. We've got a lot to jump into this year, and there's so much good that's happening right now that I want to make sure you take advantage of it. This is the first chance for me to get a chance to say hi to everybody in the new year, and I got to tell you, there are some really important things that need to have happened already for you. If they haven't happened yet, they need to happen now. And those are planning and goal setting. But that has nothing to do with Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and my newspaper delivery man. I'll get to that in a second. I really need you guys to hear that if you are going to succeed at any level, you've heard the old saying, right? You've got to have a why that makes you cry. And part of that speaks to preparation for the new year, getting ready for your new business year. If you're going to succeed at anything in your life, the reason that you're doing that thing has to be defined. The reason that you're doing that thing has to be so clearly articulated in your mind that it keeps you going when you don't want to. They say success is determined by the actions you take when nobody's watching, when nobody's listening. Who's they? I don't freaking know who they is. I'll say it. If you're going to be successful in this world today, your success is going to be determined not by the things you say and do when the lights and camera are on. It's by the things you say and do when nobody's looking, when nobody's paying attention, when nobody is there. I get up at 5 o'clock every morning. I spend the first 20 minutes reading. I come down to my office. I do a cursory check of my notes to make sure I'm on set. Then you know what I do? Take the dogs for a walk. I've got 2 young golden retrievers. I put their leashes on. I'm out the door for about 45 minutes. Got to get some level of blood flow in every day. Then I come back into the office and I get to work. I build funnels myself. I run Facebook ads. I do affiliate marketing. I make tens of thousands of dollars every single week in affiliate marketing. And I do all that stuff before 7 a.m. every single day. What keeps me going though? What gets me out of bed every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning? What pushes me when I don't want to do it? What does those things for me? What can do it for you? I have a why that drives me every day that nobody even knows about. It's a secret that I keep locked up in my heart, but it drives me every single day. I'm turning 50 this year, and I work harder today and more time than I ever have before. Why? Because I've got a reason for existing, for doing, for being, for having. That is so bloody important to me that even in those mornings where I want to roll over and go back to sleep, even when I don't want to do things, I can't stop myself from doing it. I want to tell you a little story about my newspaper man. So in my neighborhood, my newspapers, I still get old-fashioned newspapers, by the way. It's a community newspaper, but we get it delivered, and it comes early in the morning. And I never knew how it got there. I just knew it showed up. But one day I was out a bit earlier, and I was there when the guy pulled up. Now, the guy driving my newspapers around was driving a brand new Nissan Altima car. And his car wasn't completely full, but you could see the back seats were all taken up with it. Brand new car though. And I knew there was something to him because he was well kept. He was better dressed than I've ever seen a newspaper guy in my life. And I didn't say anything at the time. I just watched him go. But I remember a couple weeks later, I was in a shopping center and I met him there. And he recognized me and I recognized him. And I made a comment to him. I said, you know, you're probably the best dressed newspaper delivery guy I've ever seen in my life. And he started laughing. And I said, sorry, did I offend you? And he says, no. He says, that's my before 7 a.m. job. I said, oh, what are the rest of your jobs? As it turned out, he was an entrepreneur. And he literally had 7 different income streams coming in, and he was making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Wasn't quite making $1 million a year, but he was making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And I said, well, what's your goal? Why are you working so hard? What are you doing this? He says, I want to make sure nobody in my family, he says, I want to make sure my kids never have to want. But I want not just that, I want to break the chain. Joel Osteen wrote a book. I would encourage everybody who hears this or watches this video to read this book. I'll even put the link below. It's called Becoming a Better You. And I really strongly encourage you to read this. It was my newspaper delivery guy who told this. He says, there's a book written by Joel Osteen. It's called Becoming a Better You. And he says, I read that book and it changed everything for me. You see, in that book, Osteen talks about how do you become better? How do you get more? How do you want more? And he answers that equation, but he takes you on a journey first. And when my newspaper delivery man explained this to me, I read the book. I had to. In the book, Joel Osteen talks about heredity. But he doesn't talk about it the way most people do. When most people talk about hereditary issues or heredity in general, most people are talking about disease and disorder. If it's in your family, it's in your genes, hereditary. Good morning, Cece. Good to see you there, sister. So essentially what Osteen says is when most people talk about hereditary issues, they're talking about diseases and disorders that are passed on from generation to generation, but there's a bigger issue that's also hereditary in nature. And it's your lineage, your family lineage. And in the book, he talks about if you look at anybody who's an emergency services worker, firemen, policemen, ambulance drivers, or in most professions, if you think about who somebody is, you could ask them, what did your dad do or what did your mom do? And 70% of the time, they're going to say the same profession that they're in. Well, heredity also speaks to education and finance. If you find somebody who is really struggling financially and you look back at their parents, at their parents, at their parents, and you're going to see trends where there's a lot of people in that family really struggling financially. Now, why is that happening? A couple things. Example, the #1 word in the world today for leadership. John Maxwell, 8 years ago, I was sitting at a speaking event with him. I'd never met the man before. I was nervous as hell, and he looks over at me. We're having this private chat. He says, Ken, how would you describe leadership? #1 leadership expert in the world asked me, how would I define leadership? And I stumbled with the idea, and I thought for a minute, and I said, the only real definition of leadership that I could think of, it's one word, it's example. And that speaks to hereditary in Osteen's book. Debt, finance, money management follows lineage. And when And my newspaper delivery man said, I don't want my kids to be broke. I want my kids to have a money mindset. And when he said that, it stunned me because I realized that I had broken that chain that he spoke about. I went back and read the book and I realized that Osteen was right. If I look back at my dad and my grandpa, my great-grandpa, back 6 generations, my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, 6, was a horse thief in Ireland. And nobody's had money. They've all been broke all along the way. So my why, even from a young age, when I was 30 and I found out I was going to become a dad, was to literally create a better life for my kids. I wanted them to have all the money, or I wanted them to have all the things. I wanted them to be, like, I wanted them to see those examples too. But that's what the delivery guy said. That's what my newspaper delivery man said. He says, Olstein explains that if you're in a broke family, chances are you're going to end up broke. And if you're broke, chances are your kids are going to end up broke. And the newspaper delivery man said, I want to break the trend. And I realized I had broken the trend too. So what do Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and my newspaper delivery man have in common? It's just that. If you're going to succeed in business, there has to be a reason. There has to be a reason that you do what you do, that you push on, that you work when others aren't working, that you get up earlier than everybody else is, that keeps you doing it. And that's exactly what those men have in common. I've listened to interviews from all of them. And when they've been asked, what makes you keep going? Their answers are the same. I'll let you listen to them.
I think the first is you need to work, depending upon how well you want to do, and particularly if you're starting a company, you need to work super hard. So what does super hard mean? Well, when my brother and I were starting our first company, instead of getting an apartment, we just rented a small office and we slept on the couch. And we showered at the YMCA, and we're so hot up we had just one computer. So the website was up during the day, and I was coding at night, 7 days a week, all the time. And I sort of briefly had a girlfriend in that period, and in order to be with me, she had to sleep in the office. So work hard, like I mean, every waking hour. That's the thing I would say, particularly if you're starting a company. And I mean, if you do simple math, you say like, okay, if somebody else is working 50 hours and you're working 100, you'll get twice as much done in the course of a year as the other company.
You can hear it right from their words. They all had things that pushed them so hard that every time they stopped to slow down, it was like a fire burning under their arse. They couldn't stop. And friends, that's what pushes me every single day. I've always got a reason why. I've always got something that is behind my action levels. That if I stop doing what I'm doing, I know that the reciprocal result is going to be damage that is irreconcilable, damage that is irrevocable, damage that is going to be multi-generational. And I know with all of my heart that as long as I keep doing the thing, I can break the trend. Break the trend. If you're watching this on YouTube, I want you to type that in the comments. Break the trend. I like Cece's watching this with me live on Facebook, and she typed that in the chat. Break the trend. I want you to type that in the comments if you watch this video. Now, here's the other thing that people always say whenever I hear somebody talking about, whenever somebody hears like this, there's going to be the naysayer that says, well, I'm an exception to that rule. Things are harder for me. I've had so much strife. I've had so much trouble. I really suck at technology. I suck at digital. Like, they'll come up with every excuse in the book. And so my challenge to you, if you're watching this, hearing this, paying attention to this, my challenge is this. You can be bitter or you can get better. You can make excuses or you can take action. You can't do both. Because every excuse you think you have, every struggle you think you're going through, every punch in the gut you think you've gotten, There are a dozen other people right around you that have gotten 10 times worse and are doing 10 times better. Why? It's because they let those challenges empower them as opposed to paralyze them. And if you want to succeed, if we want to succeed, that's what we have to do. We have to look at every struggle, every obstacle, every issue that comes into our life and use that as the why. Use that as the reason why you work harder, why you fight stronger, why you do more than every single person around you. And stop worrying about who's going to pay attention and being an example. Stop worrying about all of that stuff. Because the sum result, the sum result of your activity is going to be your success. And your success will be seen. You don't have to talk about what you're doing. You don't have to talk about the pain. In fact, I believe the person who spends all their time talking about the shit they're going through is looking for nothing other than sympathy. And in the dictionary, sympathy falls right between shit and syphilis. And you don't need it. You don't need to waste your time talking to other people about all your woes because they've got them too. What do you really want to be remembered for in your life? The person that every time they got a chance, they talked about how shitty, how bad their life was, or the person that every time you had a chance to talk to somebody else, you spoke magic into their lives. You spoke happiness into their lives. You intentionally put all of your junk in a trunk and locked it away so that every time you had a chance to talk to somebody else, you inspired them. Who do you think is the person that's going to be remembered after they're gone? The person that spends all their time singing their woes, or the person that spends all their time inspiring, encouraging, enlightening? It's a very, very important time in a calendar year, the beginning of the year. It's a time when you get to decide that what's behind you is in the mirror. What's behind you is in the past. And you can't drive forward looking in a mirror. You get to decide that the only important thing today is your reason for movement that we talked about and the goals that you set. And if you keep paying attention, we're going to set those goals together, we're going to execute on those goals, and we are going to change millions of lives together. But it's not going to happen unless you take action. Every single day, do more than the day before. Every single day, fight a little harder. Every single day, think about why you do what you do. And if your why is not strong enough to make you cry, then get a new why. If your why doesn't bring you to an emotional level, if your why doesn't scare you, doesn't push you, it's not your why. Find a why that makes you cry. Find a reason to do what you do that keeps you doing what you do, that pushes you forward. Jim Rohn was a mentor to me. Jim Rohn actually was my first speaking coach. And Jim Rohn, I remember him saying this. He said it to me privately. He said it to me, said it on stage in many of his talks. He says, every year, learn a new language. Every year, learn a new skill. Every year, do something that you thought impossible the year before. And that's really what the message is all about. Les Brown says, you've got greatness in you. I truly believe that. I don't even think about the colloquialism about it. I do believe that, look, I'm going to be honest, I don't think we were all built the same. I don't think we're all given the same gifts. I don't think that we were all, because if we are, we'd all be making tens of millions of dollars singing on stages or playing football games. I think we all have unique skill sets. One thing I do know There's a book called Outliers, which should be another big one on your list. Becoming a Better You and Outliers. Outliers was written by Malcolm Gladwell. And that's the book where the 10,000 hour rule was really articulated the best and kind of turned into a science project for Gladwell. In Outliers, Gladwell had studied over 1,000 people that had excelled and reached the highest level of their respective fields. And Gladwell was really trying to figure out the answers. He studied sports athletes. He studied titans of industry. And he found some nuances, like in NHL hockey, professional hockey. He found that 70% of people that played hockey were born in January, February, or March. Why? Because they were a bit older before they got into they were a bit younger before they got into their first year of hockey. So they had a bit more hockey education. They had a bit more experience. They were a bit more mature at the draft. And those things made a difference. He said, but the one thing that transcended any profession, the one thing that transcended any experience was 10,000 hours. He said, if you're truly going to master anything, it's going to take you 10,000 hours of practicing that thing. And he said the greatest, the Bill Gateses, the Elon Musks, and even my newspaper delivery man. 10,000 hours is just a start for them. But you will never get that goal achieved without 10,000 hours of practice, without 10,000 hours of time and energy and consistency, perfection, like just excellence. You know what's funny is if this is the start of the 10,000 hours for you, keep track of it. But here's what's amazing. Many of you have a dream of helping other people, of being an example of other people, of leading other people. The best way in the world to do it is go on an excellence journey yourself and watch what happens. As you're focusing, all I do every day is I study. I try to become better. I try to become excellent. I try to deliver at higher levels, to do more. And I realized a short time ago that people were really paying attention to me more so and more so all the time. And when I figured it out, it was while I had read Gladwell's book, and I became really inspired to be able to look and say, look, I put 100,000 hours into what I do. But it was right around that 10,000 hour mark where my business really started taking off. And the more time I put into excellence myself, the more people that are paying attention. So the moral of our story today and our time today is have a reason for what you do that keeps you doing what you do even when you don't want to do it. Because that's what Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and my newspaper delivery man did. And you can do it too.